So this will be the last My Aim Journey video for the year. Next week I'm going to do a retrospective on the 16 weeks that have gone past and all the lessons that I've learned. The weeks after that I have some interesting things planned, but I don't want to give them away just yet because I'm still working on the ideas and fleshing them out. But next week hopefully I'll be able to give you a better update on those. But other than that, we'll just jump straight into the practice sessions. Overall, for my smoothness and my precise tracking, I think it was a pretty average week. On day one of my practice runs, I saw a lot of very, very low scores in this category. Thankfully, on day two, things picked up a little bit and brought me back to where I would like to be, but I'm not really sure why I was having such a tough time on day one. So hopefully I can focus in on that and figure out why I was having those issues and remedy them. In reactive, we saw a new personal best on Ground Plaza yet again, going from 845 points to 847 points and inching us closer and closer to Diamond. Air AIO also saw a new personal best from 2,000 points to 2,032 points, but unfortunately the average was really bad, so hopefully we can improve that in the next few weeks. Dynamic clicking was the biggest letdown this week. Popcorn did okay, but Pasu saw some very poor averages and I'm not happy with my performance in Pasu. For static, it was a very good week. We saw a couple new personal bests and also tied other personal bests. Pokeball saw a new personal best from 81 to 87 points, which is a very good improvement. One Wall 4 Target Small saw a new personal best this week as well, only going from 76 to 77 points. And Y Wall 2 Target Small tied my personal best score multiple times across the runs. Unfortunately, target switching letting me down again this week. Not seeing any new personal bests and seeing actually pretty poor scores all the way across the board. I don't know if it's a matter of just moving my hand faster or if I have to actually stabilize when I'm switching to targets. But I'm going to take more time and focus on both of those things and hopefully we can narrow in on some improvements there. So moving on to our benchmarks, and in contrast to our practice sessions, our dynamic clicking actually did pretty well this week. We saw Pasu getting some pretty good averages, no new personal bests, but still happy to see that. Bounce 180 also redeemed itself after last week's poor performance. I don't know what exactly was wrong last week, but we're seeing much better averages than we were last week, which is great. Popcorn actually had a pretty good week as well. We managed to tie our personal best multiple times. Unfortunately not being able to beat it, but I'm happy with that after the dynamic clicking that we had in our practice sessions and even last week. We're probably going to give Static the gold star that it deserves this week, also coming through with some really good scores in our benchmark sessions. Y Wall 3 Targets got some pretty good scores, unfortunately no new personal best, but also bringing averages up right where we want them. One Wall 4 Target Small is the same story as Y Wall 3 Targets, but it also saw the best score we've ever seen for that scenario. And 6 Sphere Hipfire, unfortunately falling 1 point short of our personal best, but also seeing some really good averages. Ground Plaza did okay this week. We swapped over from Ground Plaza Voltaic Easy to Ground Plaza Voltaic, so had a slightly more difficult version. Unfortunately, we didn't manage to beat the new personal best that we got in the practice sessions on the same scenario, but we did manage to get pretty close, getting 847.1 to our personal best 847.9. And now moving on to the letdowns of the week. Smoothbot, as always, driving me straight up the wall like a hovercraft in Battlefield 2042. Unfortunately, my scores aren't doing that. They are falling like a rock. I've been saying this for weeks and I actually need to do it. I need to get in and do that pure G smoothness routine to actually focus on my weaknesses rather than just saying I'm going to do it and not actually doing it. And continuing our downward trend of target switching, we see every scenario in evasive tracking getting really poor scores. I'll take a screenshot of my notes and it just says pretty bad week, pretty bad week, pretty bad week for all of those scenarios. I'm not very happy with my target switching, but that just gives me something to work on in the next few weeks. So overall, I think it was a pretty good week. We saw static do pretty well. Our dynamic clicking in our benchmarks at the very least did pretty well. Other than our dynamic clicking in our practice was pretty poor, and our target switching across the board being the big letdown, as well as Smoothbot, which we all know the story for. But this is a situation that I found myself in with static scenarios not too long ago. I always dreaded doing them, and I would never get consistent good scores. But now it's the opposite, and I'm seeing pretty good consistent scores in static, but now I'm seeing poor scores in my precise tracking and my target switching. So hopefully we can level things out in the next few weeks. If you haven't already, check out last week's video where we finally managed to get Diamond on Ground Plaza.